Greetings to everyone. I would like to welcome all of you back to another episode of the Weekend WOOOOO Show. I'm Ken King, and tonight we're going to be exploring some more strange and unusual mysteries and phenomena. Before we get started, I would like to thank all of the people who commented on the first episode. Your support and enthusiasm was greatly appreciated and inspires us to go forward with this. So without any further ado, let's get started. Flickering in and out of the darkness, sometimes only for a split second, other times longer. It's always translucent and always leaves an overwhelming sense of fear and dread. There are many questions about what they are, what their intentions are, and where do they come from. Why do they appear to some people and not to others? And more basically, who and what are the shadow people? Have you ever felt like you're being watched? Maybe you're reading a book or in the middle of some household chore. Maybe you're even sitting around watching a video on YouTube in the dark of night. When all of a sudden, the unshakable feeling comes over you and the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. It feels like there's someone else in the room, even though you believe you are alone. Then, out of the corner of your eye, you see a movement, a shadow in your peripheral vision. It was right there, but when you turn your head to look, it's gone. Or maybe you're lying in bed when this feeling comes over you. You feel that cold chill. You peek over the top of the blankets, and sure enough, there's a dark, eerie figure standing at the end of your bed. In your wide-eyed terror, you manage to finally blink to clear your eyes, and when you open them again, the figure is gone. If you have experienced something similar to this, then you're not alone. It's a phenomena experienced all over the world, regardless of age, race, religion, or background. It doesn't have prejudice. It torments without boundaries. These strange figures are simply known as the shadow people, and we, as a species, have been seeing them since the beginning of time. They appear in one of two ways. There are the peepers, which manifest right at the edge of your visual range and look as if they're peeking out at you from behind something. And then there are the far more terrifying, full visual apparitions that visit you at night in your bed. They've been linked to hauntings, violent poltergeist activity, and in some cases have even been thought to have caused death. There is one figure amongst them that is said to be a pure diabolical evil, and if you ever see him, it's considered a death omen. He is known as the Hat Man, and only appears to those who are about to face a personal crisis or family tragedy. If you see him, it's already too late. At the end of this video, I will offer some advice and techniques to help guard against these unwanted intrusions. You can take it or leave it. It's only your soul, your sanity, and tranquility that we're talking about. The first story goes like this. Eric will always remember July 4th of 2005. He was just 8 years old, and it was the height of summer. It was incredibly hot, and he took to sleeping with his bedroom window open. He had woken up several times during the night, his body covered in sweat, tossing and turning and trying to find a cooler place to sleep. He didn't know what time of the night it was when he had the first experience. There wasn't a clock in his room, but he knew that it was well after midnight because his dad, who always stayed up late, had finally gone to bed and the house was stone quiet. It was so quiet, in fact, that he could hear the guttural sound of his dad snoring in the other room. After getting up to get some water, he stretched onto his back and just laid there in the darkness, staring at the model plane hanging from the ceiling. The heat was suffocating, but he found distraction thinking about the fireworks display from earlier that evening. Suddenly, a slight movement in his peripheral vision caught his attention to the left side of the bed. With his bedroom window and curtains open, he could see directly outside. He could also see the top of the porch roof. Several times he had climbed out of the window just to sit on the roof whenever he wanted to get away from everything or just enjoy the view of the neighborhood. Eric didn't see what had moved, but when he turned his head to look directly at the window, there was nothing there. He wrote it off almost immediately, but as he lay there motionless, it happened again. When he looked over, he couldn't see anything. It was as if someone was outside, just behind the edge of the window frame to the left. This happened again and again, and each time that he turned his head to look, it vanished. After the fifth or sixth time that it happened, he decided to just lie still and try not to look at it. He kept his head angled just enough so that out of the corner of his eye, he could make out a dark figure standing just off to the left of the window. After a few seconds, it proceeded to walk past the window, then turned around and walked back again. It paced back and forth several times. Each time its movement was more sluggish and deliberate, like it was trying to show him that it was there. Eric remembered thinking that whoever it was seemed to be dressed like the men in the old black and white movies. It was wearing a long trench coat, and he could just almost see the outline of a hat on the top of its head. He couldn't see any other features. Everything was just a black silhouette against the streetlights outside. Strangely, he didn't feel scared by it. His young mind was not quite jaded to worldly experiences, and he didn't consider the possibility of it being a prowler outside the window. If anything, he found it really annoying. As he got out of bed to close his curtains, he heard footsteps running across the roof and quickly stopped. When he looked outside, whoever had been there had disappeared into the night. By the time he woke up the next day, he had completely forgotten about it. Years later, while at college, a friend loaned him a book on the subject of strange phenomena, and there was a chapter in there regarding shadow people. When he read one passage in particular, his mind was immediately taken back to that 4th of July, and the chills just ran up his spine. He realized that what he saw was more than likely the infamous Hat Man. But what disturbed him the most were the implications attached to seeing such an evil entity. When he went home at the end of the semester, he told his mother about what he had seen outside the window when he was younger, and he told her what it was supposed to mean. He wanted to ask her if anyone in the family had passed away around that time, but before the question even left his lips, his mother said, "I wonder if it was here for Emily." Eric drew a blank stare, and his mother had to clue him in. Emily was a friend from next door. She had died in her sleep somewhat mysteriously on the night of July 4th that same year. Eric was shocked to find that he had completely forgotten all about it, and he wondered why. Was it so traumatic that he just blocked it out? Or did his late-night visitor have something to do with erasing his memory? The next story happened in 2013 in Payson, Arizona. Judith and Richard slept in separate bedrooms. Many older couples tend to do this for a variety of reasons conducive to a good night's sleep. Judith had gotten up in the wee hours to answer a bathroom call, and on her way she passed her husband's room, and she could hear him snoring like a bear, as he always did. This was one of the main reasons they had taken to sleeping in separate bedrooms. It was also the reason why on the way back from the bathroom that she stopped at his door and listened. It had gone completely quiet in there. Richard always suffered with sleep apnea, and she wondered if he might have had trouble breathing. Sleep apnea is a potentially dangerous disorder which can be fatal in extreme circumstances. Putting her ear against the door, she was horrified to hear the sound of her husband gurgling and choking. It was almost inaudible behind the solid oak door, but there was no mistaking it. She immediately opened the door, ready to rush over to his aid, but instead just stood there frozen, horrified in her tracks. When she tearfully related this story to her granddaughter some years later, Judith was still as traumatized as the night that it happened. She said that what she saw inside the room chilled her to the core and almost stopped her own heart dead at that moment. It had your granddad around the throat. It was just sitting there on his chest. No face, just this black thing. I could see the outline of a head and shoulders, but the rest, it was just a black mist. As I opened the door, it turned and it looked at me. Then it just sank into the bed and vanished, completely gone. Judith had never told anyone else about what she had seen. Prior to sharing this with her granddaughter, she was always afraid of being called crazy or being committed, as she put it. She hadn't even told her husband about the incident of the night visitor. Sadly, Richard passed away just 6 months later. These are just a couple of the typical examples. Many thousands of people experience these dark figures on a nightly basis. So what are they exactly? An alien? Some other type of cryptid? A demonic entity? Maybe some are what we associate with as the Grim Reaper or the Angel of Death? Or are they just a figment of the imagination? It's all open to debate, but for the people that experience this, these beings are a real manifestation that terrorize them in the dead of night. Some other possible names besides the shadow people are the Hat Man, the Grinning Man, an incubus, a succubus, Whatever name you slap onto it, it's still a very terrifying phenomena. It's not just children who fear the dark. These entities have no boundary for age. Perhaps in a few rare instances, it's the town recluse who lives in the decrepit old house at the end of the street, and he's out lurking about, trying to satisfy some demented need to peep or to spy. Something unseen, watching from beyond the tree line of the woods, and then it follows you home. Or perhaps it actually is some demonic creature dwelling in the lonely, windswept psyche of your subconscious mind, waiting to slither out of the shadows when your guard is down, venturing out during the night to feast on the energy of the young and old alike. Whatever it is, it knows where you are, and it wants your fear. In doing research on some of the old folklore and wives' tales and other references about the shadow people, there are a few consistent remedies that may actually seem to keep them away. One method suggests placing a dish of sea salt under your bed and one in each corner of the room. Theoretically, it's supposed to absorb the negativity to keep it from being able to manifest in its full form. Another suggestion requires that you place an X symbol in the same locations as well as over the doors and windows. They should be made from iron, something like using framing nails in the form of an X. Smudging with sage may help for brief periods, but utilizing the help of clergy or other shaman-type individuals who are well-versed in house cleansings and dealing with paranormal are a more preferable approach. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any practical information on how to actually kill one of these creatures. Maybe we'll learn down the road. Thank you for tuning in. Good night and pleasant dreams.